Hello po to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening sa inyong lahat. Thank you for joining us in episode 20 of Literatura Season 2. The title is 9 to 5 on love, loss, uh, late stage capitalism, and other concerns. So, sounds like an interesting topic, right? Um, Hopefully, all of us will continue to tune in our episode 20 of Literatura Season 2. This is going to be an exciting talk. So, hopefully, you will stay tuned with us. Kumusta po dyan, Ma'am Andre? How are you doing? Uh,
I'm doing great, Sir Alan. Gusto ko makita, yan.
there we go.
Nakita ko na yung, ah, yung kuwagwapuhan ngayong umaga dyan. At dito sa
It's
Pilipinas,
really early here. Ano
maulan.
oras dito? It's
It's
6:49,
raining
6:49
here.
in the morning. Oo,
Yes.
here in Washington DC, in Virginia.
Yeah, ngayon is 6:49 ng gabi dito sa Pilipinas.
And may
At
bagyo diyan,
maulan
'di ba? May
kasi
bagyo?
sabi mo nga kanina, si Bagyong Paeng. Dito
Yeah.
maraming flooded na area sa Northern Iloilo tsaka papuntang Boracay, Aklan and Capiz.
Oh,
So sa
wow.
mga kapwa ko guro,
Yeah.
sa mga estudyante diyan sa Rojas, sa Aklan, sana you're safe and sana makabalik na kayo sa pag-aaral kasi it's been siguro mga 6 months na. More than 6 months na little by little face to face na tayo.
No, that's
So,
great.
yes. So ngayong gabi Sir Alan, yung ating panauhin or our guest, ang kanyang pen name ay Toshiro Hiroshi. Tingnan natin kung bakit ganyan yung kanyang pen name. Is a
Mhm.
20-year-old writer from Iloilo
Really
City.
young. Yeah.
Wrote for his high school alma mater student publication before writing serious fiction at 17. His works revolves around subjects of social injustice, historical commentary, loss, loneliness, conspiracy, and surrealism with occasional asides on love and its irony. For so far, he has published over two novels, 9-5 and Conversations with a Rat, and one collection of stories absolutely on pandemic. His other works has appeared or forthcoming in Busay, Hiraya Anniverzine, and UP Writers Club, Sinuman magazine. He won champion and second runner-up for the short story and poetry categories of the March Round of Life UP dates spearheaded by Life Updates spearheaded by Likhaan University of the Philippines Institute of Creative Writing. Mga kakultura, mga kapwa kuguro, mga estudyante, let us welcome to Literatura and Kapwa Mr. Robin Angelo Yankin or in Facebook, tinatawag siyang Don Robin. So magandang gabi, Sir Robin Angelo Yankin. Sir Yankin,
Well,
good evening.
good evening to all viewers.
Yes, great. So, maybe he's among the youngest writers that we've had here in
Yes po.
Literatura, ano, Ma'am Andre?
Yes po.
If not the youngest
Yes po.
writer that we have here in Literatura. But I'm really excited to hear his presentation about the this his book and the topics that he has on his book. Because even the title itself is really interesting. Um,
Yes.
so
9-5.
yeah, so is it 9-5 or 9 to 5?
9 to 5 actually.
Yeah. So
Okay,
9 to 5.
9-5.
Yeah, 9 to 5 is actually it's like the working hours of regular working hours of people. When you say 9 to 5, Yun yung parang regular working hours of
Yes.
the
Mga,
working class. um,
yes po.
so yeah, let's without further ado, I want to hear the presentation. So uh, Toshiro Hiroshi, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. So before I start, thank you to all the viewers, and I'll be here to present a uh, 9 to 5 on love, loss, late stage capitalism, and other concerns. Next slide. So before I go to the book itself, I want to talk a little bit more about how I created it. So it will be split into 4 timelines: February 2019, October 2019, January to February 2020, and March to April 2020. Next slide, please. So February 2019 was when I discovered Maria Takeuchi and her song called Plastic Love, which had been the initial inspiration for the first segment of 9 to 5 entitled One Night in Shibuya, which I had gathered from a. And the idea behind that was this pair of dysfunctional Tokyoite lovers, basically, which I thought up for a creative writing class, which I expanded upon outside of it. Next slide, please. And as for part two, for Office, I took inspiration from the Kafkaesque nature of the workday, typically, more specifically, grounded in context of Tokyo salarymen and how they had operated, what their lives are like. I always find the mundane fascinating this way. Next slide. And finally, for the third segment, Loveless Hiroshi Nagasaki News Years of Solitude, I based it on my research, readings rather, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the real story of the atomic bombings and their aftermath by Paul Ham. And to be specific, the storylines in part three were inspired by the events that had transpired on August 6, 1945 in Hiroshima. Next slide, please. And now we go on to part one, which is One Night in Shibuya. Next slide. So the plot for One Night in Shibuya is basically you have a young washed-up CEO who meets the love of his life at a Shibuya nightclub, and then stuff happens, and then they fall in love, of course. But then, as expected, things fall apart quicker. Next slide, please. So we have 4 main characters and 2 secondary characters for this arc of the novel. First is Hiroki Matsuyama. He's the CEO, the aforementioned CEO, who falls for the second main character, Fumiko Takeuchi, an enigmatic woman he meets on the dance floor of this Shibuya nightclub, and they hit it off. And over the course of the first half of One Night in Shibuya, you have Hiroki and Fumiko. Of course, after that party happened, Hiroki accompanies Fumiko to the Shinkansen, or the bullet train, and of course they meet again in Shibuya Crossing. That's where they pick up where they left off and go to Tokyo Tower later that day. Then something magical happens, but then yeah. And then we have, for the second part of One Night in Shibuya, we have the characters Akira Yamaguchi. He's a deadbeat character basically, who has no prospects. General failure basically. who drinks his nights away in the same nightclub in Shibuya, and he meets this other character named Mariko Yamamoto about the same enigmatic as Fumiko, but the way they meet is a bit different from the same dreamy scenario in the first part, as Akira saves Mariko from a deranged senior who takes her captive at knife point. Knife point, and he's a catalyst to part two, in that he, yeah, as I've said, he puts Mariko at knife point. He sparks something in Akira, and that makes him realize that he has um, basically reminded Akira of the failure that he has become, and he's been willing to try to turn a new leaf in that sense. It's a very absurd turn of events, but yeah. Then we have Mao, or demon, not a demon in the biblical sense, but a kind of shadow, basically. This dark shadow that looms over Mariko. Uh, yeah, kind of looms over Mariko and kind of looms over Fumiko, in the same sense as this Mao, this shadow. Um, the shadow tries to tell Fumiko what to do, basically. In the book. Hmm, yeah. Next slide, please. So from this point onward, we have love, loss, and late-stage capitalism as the anchoring themes. Love, in that, of course, we have the loves of Hiroki and Fumiko, and the loves of um, the love of, should I say, of Akira and Mariko. Loss, in the sense that their loves had, though their loves are very superficial and have fallen apart quickly, and late-stage capitalism as all of as these their loves are tied by the sort of there's a bit of a corporate element, should I say, in that they fell in love after the workday, specifically at night, because things things at night aren't what they seem, basically. Next, please. So first is desire, the theme, in that this desire shows up as let's see, as Hiroki, for some strange reason, has the Hiroki and um, Hiroki and Fumiko show this desire, and Akira and Mariko also have this kind of artificial desire, in that they covet um, they covet what is essentially material in each other, not the ethereal, not the deeper aspects. Next, please. Okay, confusion. Confusion in the sense that Hiroki, while he may have some attachment to Mariko, and then Akira, well, no. Hiroki, while he might have some attachment to Fumiko, and Akira, while he might have some attachment to Mariko, they both don't know what they want. Like, they have this overhanging, this like these material, like the material clashes with um, the spiritual, in the sense. Like, these two couples, their relationship um, is so confused, so convoluted, so shallow. And next, please. and escapism, of course. Escapism in that Hiroki, in the opening scene, he drinks a lot of sake in an attempt to escape from the failure that he has had at a failed business meeting he's had in Kanagawa. And Akira, in the sense that he escapes, he also drinks. He escapes from mundane matters. He escaped from the failure that he has become. Fumiko and Mariko, they escape. They escape by dancing the nights away in the Shibuya nightclub, trying to forget everything else, trying to live in the moment, but they know that they can't fully escape this circumstances they are in. Next slide, please. So we have part two, office. Next slide, please. So the general plot for this segment is a depressed salaryman struggles to come to terms with job dissatisfaction, surreal hallucinations, and the ghosts of his wrecked dreams. Next slide, please. And in this part, we have 6 main characters and 2 secondary characters. Takamatsu Hamada is this idealistic figure. At first, he seems to be idealistic, but as this segment progresses, he becomes more and more pessimistic as he is the daily grind leaves him um, betrayed in a way. Like he started out with these expectations of being this wonderful employee who slaves away with good purpose, who hopes to get out of the rat race soon enough and try to build a life for himself through this 9 to 5. But the more he grinds every day, the more he loses himself, basically. The more the demands of the day wear him down, and the more he loses meaning, he loses sight of himself. Saito Tanabe, meanwhile, is the father of Takamatsu Mamada. And that, not father. Saito Tanabe, rather, is the best friend of Takamatsu Mamada, who he meets one day, and they meet one day after work, and they discuss, they pick up where their lives have gone. And Saito Tanabe, in a way, is the voice, is a kind of guiding voice for Takamatsu, in that he reminds him that he used to be this idealistic figure, and that he used to have a life, and that Saito is there to kind of steer him back into the right direction, basically. Mr. Shiroto, meanwhile, is the CEO of Takamatsu's workplace, Shiroto Nakano Software. And his role is basically the antagonist. He's the main antagonist to Takamatsu, in the sense that he impedes Takamatsu's chances of succeeding. I mean, sure, he's seen Takamatsu as he's seen the potential in Takamatsu, but then over the years, 2 years rather, because so much has changed in the 2 years since Takamatsu's employment. Mr. Shiroto finds that one of his former best employees in the ethics committee has strayed far from who he's become, and every time he sees fault in Takamatsu, he berates him. He tries to set an example to the rest of his employees. Like, see this Takamatsu right here. He's what happens when you don't keep up with the 9 to 5. You don't find the work-life balance that you need to achieve in order to be stable. Shibaro Hamada, he's the father. He's the father of Takamatsu. He is. Takamatsu realized his dreams of being an office worker in Kaishin from emulating his father's example. But then something happens to Shibaro, which I won't disclose. You'll have to read the book to find out. And Takamatsu's plans shift course. And Miss Hamada is the mother, of course. she, like Takamatsu, also has struggled um, because of what happened to her husband, and she shares this sense of shares the ghosts of Takamatsu's wrecked dreams. And the voice is a mysterious character in that um, they interrupt during critical moments, specifically during the hallucinations of Takamatsu. The first time being Takamatsu sees a chrysanthemum growing out of his office floor, and then he hears a voice saying, "Be free, be free." This voice also appears during another strange hallucination with Saito Tanabe, saying, "Be free, be free." So this voice is the you could say chorus for this book, in that it sets the tone, the kind of ominous tone. And as for the secondary character, we have the chief of the ethics committee. He sometimes turns a blind eye to Takamatsu's inefficiencies and insufficiencies, and that because he understands that that's what the grind does to anybody. He's a consoling figure, basically, to Takamatsu. And then we have the CEO of Takagawa Technologies, only appears briefly in one scene with Saito Tanabe. He's a He also appears in one of Saito Tanabe's backstories. Next slide, please. And themes, love, loss, and late stage capitalism aside. We have next slides, please. +4. Disillusionment, in that the daily grind left the characters wanting to escape life as they know it. Next slide, please. Hazardous work culture in the embodied in the character of Takamatsu, that he gets berated at work. He sees the grind as something to get rid of, something to something to hmm, hazardous work culture in the sense that um, Takamatsu wants to escape, but he doesn't know how to escape the rat race. Next slide, please. Social and personal expectations, embodied also in the character of Takamatsu and Shibaru, in a sense, and Mr. Shroto as well, as people come to expect things of each other, but then they also have their own expectations which they couldn't live up to. And next slide, please. And finally, we have individual freedom. Of course, being members of the working class, they have not much freedom beyond the square work day. So this question of individual freedom is challenged. Like, how free are we in a society that values work aside from personal passion, in sense. And next slide, please. And finally, we have Loveless Hiroshi Nagasaki and His Years of Solitude. Next slide, please. And the general plot is that a former executive goes on two strange parallel quests. One to search for his long-lost grandfather, who as a teenager had witnessed the dropping of the first nuclear bomb upon Hiroshima, and another to fulfill a heavenly prophecy that was made against his will. Next slide, please. We have 7 main characters and 7 secondary characters. So, to outline in brief, Hiroshi Nagasaki is the titular character. Naruhodo is the grandfather of Hiroshi Nagasaki, who has lived to see Hiroshima fall to ruin. Hiroshima is a spirit who resides in Hiroshi Nagasaki's apartment. Bentaizen is the goddess of all things flowing, adapted from the Japanese mythological character Benzaiten. With this, there's a slight variation in spelling. See, because I wanted to show, I wanted to make the character my own, in a sense that, see, Bentaizen, see, she's the goddess of all things flowing, meaning language is the thing that's all flowing. So meaning she being the goddess, she could call herself whatever she wants, Benzaiten, Bentaizen, whatever that is. As long as she controls the language, she controls the war. For example, she controls the water, she controls language in a sense. So she's the main impediment to Hiroshi Nagasaki, who puts this prophecy against his will, enacts this prophecy against his will. Then we have Bakudan and Ayako Nagasaki, the mother and father of Hiroshi. Both are very toxic characters, such that Bakudan, he abuses, he um, he makes Hiroshi Nagasaki's childhood a traumatic experience, and that Ayako um, is blind to these, blind to Hiroshi Nagasaki's suffering in a way. Secondary is Himawaru Motoyama, is the wife of Naruhodo, who dies from sustained um, nuclear fallout, the effects of nuclear fallout from Hiroshima. Koizumi Shinagawa and Misani Asukusa are the women who are roped into the heavenly prophecy enacted by Bentaizen. Shrine Elder, we have the Metropolitan Police, the Old Sage, and Mr. Shiroto also play very minor roles, and you'll see in the book. Next slide, please. So the general themes, you have love, loss, and late-stage capitalism, much in the same vein as 9 to 5, much in the same vein as Office and One Night in Shibuya. Next slide, please. So a major theme here is nuclear war, in that Hiroshima, we have the events of Hiroshima embodied in the backstories of Naruhodo, who witnesses the horror laid upon his city on August 6, 1945, and the ensuing portraits of the Hibokusha affected by the nuclear war. Next slide, please. We have generational trauma, in that Naruhodo, he has survived the nuclear catastrophe that was Hiroshima, and then he had transferred the trauma onto his adopted son, Bakudan, who also transfers his trauma of being raised by Naru to Hiroshi, and Hiroshi, who tries to deal with this trauma as he grows older. Yes. Next slide, please. And we have memory and forgetting, in that Hiroshi wants to forget he had a past, he had a traumatic past, and he tries to grapple with this past. Naru tries to grapple with this past. Bakudan also tries to grapple with the past of being raised by an imperfect father as Naru. And next slide, please. And finally, we have regret, in that Naru wished he could have done things differently after. He could have been reunited with his family in Hiroshima. He could have died together with them. That Bakudan could have raised Hiroshi a little bit better, and Hiroshi wished he could have had a proper life for himself instead of losing himself in his work, the 9 to 5. Next, please. So we have the image credits. Next slide, please. Okay. So thank you so much for watching, and that concludes my presentation on 9 to 5.
Thank you so much. Such a great presentation. I like the fact that you even put the credits at the end. I'm a fan of citing sources and everything. Yeah. So really, really great. Really interested with your topic, especially at such a young age. You know, your writing. So I have actually a couple of questions here, not just a couple, but many questions.
Yes.
So where do you find inspiration to write at such a young age, and when did you really start writing?
Okay. So I found inspirations at a young age. As I've said, with the music track that I mentioned earlier
Mhm.
was the catalyst, and then I eventually moved on to more serious contemporary concerns as hazardous work culture and these injustices committed at work, and then it branched off to historical consciousness, the concerns with Hibakusha, with Hiroshima, nuclear war, stuff like that.
What
And
what
yes,
age? Like around what age did you start listening to that music?
I actually listened to it February 2019, so
Oh,
around 3 years ago. Yes, I
and
actually
since
found it
then you
on
started.
YouTube recommended.
Nice, nice. So, and you started writing since then.
Yes, yes,
That is
at
really
a
good.
steady pace.
But so you were well, attracted to this the Japanese kind of culture. You
Yeah.
think you are attracted to the Japanese culture?
Yes, yes, in a way.
Yeah,
I every day I keep learning more and more about Japan,
yeah,
about um, how because it's such an enigmatic country for me. It's one of those. It has this charm. Uh, yes.
yeah. So okay, so that we won't be from that you said it's in such an enigmatic country, and that kind of answers this question. But anything else aside from that, like enigmatic? What do you mean by enigmatic country? Uh,
It's always had. I've always been fascinated with Japan since an early age. In that I grew up indirectly, should I say, immersed in Japanese culture. We had um,
you're pure
or
Filipino, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. You could say I found inspiration in yeah, apart from Japanese music, which I discovered not so long ago. I've also had some. I recall childhood memories of I don't know, singing Voltas Five,
Yeah.
the theme song. Yeah.
In Japanese culture also, they have influence on me when I was growing up.
Mm,
Well, at your age, or even younger, in when we were in high school, back in Guam, because in Guam we have a lot of Japanese visitors.
mm,
Actually, Guam makes money out of tourists who are from Japan, um, whether Japanese or from other countries, but especially Japanese because they would come there in Japan, and my friend would introduce me to these Japanese songs. Really nice. I don't understand them, but like what they said, music is a universal language, so we always understand, how beautiful their music is. But let's talk about their literature. So, as a reader and a writer of Japanese literature, what do you like most about their culture, or what did you kind of like continue to learn or like more?
um, as a reader writer of Japanese literature, I'd say the contemporary aspects are
Mhm.
what I find most appealing. Specifically, historical relevance, let's say, of World War II and how World War II had affected Japanese, the growth, the progression of Japanese from post World War II, and yes,
Yeah, so it's kind of like you mentioned contemporary, so the connection of the current events to their historical uh,
yes, basically,
events, and that's really interesting because yeah, I mean, you can see that they are modern, right? They are modern, but they still are very cultured people. I mean, they love their culture. They like to embrace their past. Um,
mm,
and their culture. So really interesting. Uh, if we continue to see them being modern at the same time, right?
yes.
So when you write, do you also incorporate some of your real life experience in your writing?
Well, to some extent, I try to stray as far from real life experience as possible.
Mhm.
Hence, why I go to great lengths to really research the topics that I'm writing about. And when real life experience bleeds through, I try to make it uh, try to put it in the foreground, basically. Try to
Okay.
incorporate as little of it as possible so as to not interfere with how the characters interact with each other or how the surroundings affect the characters.
Especially because we have different culture, you know.
Yes.
Especially with the, it seems like you're focused more on the corporate culture. So where do you find out, or where do you get like the kind of culture? Do you watch like The Office, or what do you watch the so or what books that inspires you to learn more about the kind of corporate culture?
Well, in terms of corporate culture, I watch a lot of documentaries. I also try to study some shows that are set in offices, like
Hmm.
The Office, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, but mostly I try to learn through films also, like the corporate side of things, how the employee CEO dynamics work, stuff like that.
No, great. So those are really good resources for your as a writer. So, what is your personal opinion of the corporate culture, or what they call the grind?
Well, see, I 9 to 5 began as a statement against work culture. So
Okay. Yeah.
the statement against the hazardous side of work culture, and that
Mm-hmm.
I think that there has to be a balance.
Mm-hmm.
See, people try to wear their badges. They try to wear their overwork, their overtime as badges of honor, which is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are people. They deserve rest. They deserve a life outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve so much more than just the square work day,
Mm-hmm.
section breaks.
Yeah.
We're worth more than the sum of our corporate selves.
Yeah. We are together with that. I am still kind of like 9 to 5. I'm not really like 9 to 5 as a teacher, you know, because
Mm,
I really use my time. I don't feel like now that I'm a teacher, I don't feel like I'm really working because I really enjoy what I am doing. Even if I get home, I still do some paperworks. But yeah, the 9 to 5 culture, I completely understand what you're referring to there. Um, so with this kind of writing at the age at such a young age, would you consider yourself what they call having like an old soul?
well, yes, I'd say that I'm quite an old soul, as I take my inspirations from not necessarily from this time period, as I derive inspiration from older source material, older contemporaries, say Murakami or maybe Ishiguro.
Hmm. Nice, nice. Okay. Do you find your peers supportive of your project? Since you're an old soul, usually your peers are more in the pop culture, right?
Mm.
And so you being an old soul and you write uh, something like this, nakaka-relate ba sila, or how are they supportive of your work?
Well, my peers are very, very supportive, I'd say. Um, since I began the project in 2019, I've had some ardent um, people who pushed me to keep going after writing the first segment. I've had people who looked over my drafts and tried to offer suggestions.
Mm,
I've
good.
also consulted other peers and try to check if the facts I've represented are adequate,
Yeah.
accurate. And to this day, I am profoundly grateful to all of them for supporting me in my journey this far.
Nice.
3 years and counting.
Yeah, great job. And with this video will live here forever. The well in Facebook because it's recorded, so you can always share this to your friends also who wants to learn more about some things, or some friends or acquaintances, right?
Mm,
Learn more about your book, and to give a background. You've given us a great background of your book in this Colecturatura. So Mom Andre, I have one more question, but let's go with your question. Or
Yes po.
yeah, do you have any question to
Yes po. I'm just wondering, Sir Robin, since you are focusing your writings into Japanese culture or
Mm.
Japanese characters, um, do you left your readers yung pagka-Pilipino po? How do
Ah.
you how
incorporate?
do you feel that you're, yes, being a Filipino and then your focus is Japanese
Mm.
literature or Japanese culture, hindi
Mm.
ba na paano mo ma-incorporate yung pagiging Filipino po sa pagiging writer nyo as Japanese? Meron bang do you separate yourself to the character of or your experiences being a true-blooded Filipino at saka yung Japanese character na binibigay mo sa mga writings mo po?
Well, interesting question. See, since 9 to 5, I've also been branching out apart outside Japanese culture. I'm actually gravitating back towards Filipino right now. So from this point onward, I'm trying to explore the merging of not only Japanese culture but Filipino Filipino cultures in what I find of Filipino cultures in many other cultures. Say the place of the Filipino in Japan or place of Filipino in the US or any other culture.
Yeah, really nice. I like, I like the fact that you explore, right? You explore other cultures and you explore writing about, learning about other culture also. And uh, yeah, you are also exploring right now the Filipino culture
Mm,
and stuff like what we do here in Collectaratura. We feature Filipino culture, not only that, but even Filipino authors. So we
mm,
tell that's something that we all celebrate, and I think your book has a great lesson to teach us, which is um, to not only it's, though I do support completely the embracing of our own culture as Filipinos, I
mm,
also do support the fact that we sometimes have to branch out to see how different we are and embrace who we are.
mm,
Sometimes that's how we learn when we actually branch out and learn out other cultures, and that's how we long and yearn for our own culture or the culture that we grew up with that we grew up in. And but these are great materials like what you have to show that we are learning about other cultures, how the influences are of other cultures to us as Filipinos. And like what you said, at a young age you are really singing a Voltes 5 song, so you mean those are the things that make us who we are. Um, so it's very important, and it's important also na makita nila ng ibang mga Pilipino that we not only appreciate our own culture only. Yun ang ibang mali sa sobrang pagka-nationalism kung minsan is we only embrace our own and not and close out our one to other cultures. You know.
mm.
Um, Anyways, so how do you see your work 10, 20, or 30 years from now?
Well, okay, this is an interesting question. So right now I'm also working on something big. I'd say my biggest novel
Mm.
um in a while. Probably it'll be a very thick book. So from 10, 20 30 years from now, I'm seeing myself still writing, but then I'd expand beyond Japanese culture. I try to see through beyond. I try to see problems beyond historical consciousness, beyond historical materialism, and also try to incorporate more of the problems that contemporary Filipino society faces in my work in the future.
Yeah, as long as it's not like as long as the Gone with the Wind novel, or I don't know if you've read about the Gone with the Wind novel, how thick it is, or like Count of Monte
Y-
Cristo
yeah.
novels. I haven't not even read those because just by looking at the book, I'm already tired in stuff in reading them. But that would be a great book. Those would be probably be a great book to read if you have a lot of time in your hand. But especially now with the kind of culture that we have. We like snippets.
Mm,
We're because we're so used to just reading the very small updates on Facebook, for example. So what I noticed about now is that children are more enticed to reading like really short books. You know,
mm,
if noon, I don't know, Mom Andre, during our time, right? Um, we there was a time. Have you heard of the pocket books, Mom Andre?
Yes, of course. I'm fond of reading pocket books. When I was in
Yeah.
college, I'm reading pocket books at the same time reviewing for the exam. And
Yes.
then, as in, my cabinets are full of pocket books, more pocket books than my textbook.
Yeah. See, with the
Yes.
pocket book, in our time, it's like pocket books talaga. We're really reading pocket books. Pero yung mga
Like,
bata ngayon, it's even more than that. It's hindi pocket books, but mga very very short novels, very short stories. So yeah, those are the things that are engaging our young ones nowadays. What's that, Ma'am Andre? You're
yes, sir, tatanong ko lang, so yung mga books niyo, Sir Robin, yung parang,
mm,
um, is it a thick book na pwede naming, ngayon, is it available in Shopee
yeah,
or
in
Lazada
Shopee and
so
Lazada,
that
yeah.
we can recommend it to our students,
mm,
who are in
mm.
literature right now, or my friends, or my
Oh,
colleague,
okay.
kapwa ko guro po?
Okay, sige. So far, I've only have the three books, 9 to 5, Absolutely on the Pandemic, and Conversations with a Rat. You can reach me at Facebook to get a copy, or you could, yeah.
I think you should
Oh,
make it
okay.
available in Shopee. It's gonna
Yeah,
be.
it's also on Shopee, actually.
Oh,
Do
there we
you,
go.
Yeah.
You have the
sir,
link
are you
for it?
a
Yeah.
self-published writer, or do you have
Yes.
a publisher?
I am self-published.
Oh,
I go through a printer. The works get shipped here after a month in the printers.
oh, okay.
That's really good. That's really good, and that's the way to go. I mean, for me, that's really the one way to go in as far as publishing your own work. Because
And
yeah,
the work is I'm trying to work on Lazada. I'm trying to work on getting it into Lazada as well, but I'll just update you guys on
yeah.
that
Do you have
soon.
the link for Shopee so that we can flash it on the screen?
Yeah, yeah, I have. Wait, let me.
Okay, so while the Sir Yankin is Sir Robin is doing the uploading of the link of his Shopee book. For those teachers who are waiting for the Cultura Code for this episode of Sir Robin Angelo Yankin, it's KLS 2E20 dot KC552. That's KLS 2E20 dot KC552. So that you could receive your certificate of attendance in this episode of Sir Robin Angelo Yankin. And tune in for future events of Cultura this Sunday. We have the documentaryo with our friends or with the Aita tribe. Yun po. Sir Alan?
Yeah, there is the link now to his Shopee what do you call this form or page. So you see it there at the bottom. I'm also gonna flash the other one. So um, go ahead and invite your Kwan, your everyone to your work, and
Hmm.
also if you have any advice to young writers like you who are interested in writing, what would you tell them?
Okay. So if I were to offer some of my advice, I'd say keep reading and try to be excited about the world. Try to find something to be excited about. Try to revitalize. Try to see the world from a new perspective. Um, Try to get in touch with yourself in order to find more about what you want to write about.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a good advice. It's important to know yourself, who you are, right? To in order for you to really find your niche, uh, whether it is writing, whether it is it's art, painting, whatever. It's important to know who you are because once you started to know who you are, you can do much better in your producing your craft. So yes, thank you so much. This is such a great presentation, and this is such a great addition to Colectaratura Season 2 writers that we have. Hopefully, like I keep telling the rest of our writers here, hopefully we can invite you someday and have an in-person a gathering of all the writers or our guest speakers here in Colectaratura and yeah, get to know all of you and have a present your book in person. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Andre. Great day again.
Yes po. Yes po. For Sir Yankin, Sir Robin, your certificate will be available at your email po tonight.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Thank
Thank you
you so
po.
much and have a great day. Have a great night
Have
sa
a
inyo.
great, yes po. Have a great day to you, Sir Alan.
Yes.
And
Straight to
Sir
it.
Yankin, for the people here in the Philippines, we're experiencing typhoon.
Yes.
Paeng,
Ingat.
be safe and be well. Thank
Yes.
you. At magandang gabi po.
Good night po sa inyo lahat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you for having me.